Hi, I'm Alicia Michelle, best-selling author, ICF certified coach, and neurocoach. I love helping Christian women discover practical ways to manage emotions with science and scripture so they can live with more calm, more clarity, more confidence. I'm so glad you're here. Find a cozy spot and let's get started. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Christian Mindset Coach with me, Alicia Michelle. I've been learning about a new side of psychology and mindset work lately. It's something called parts work, and it's understanding the different parts of ourselves, understanding the different ages that we can still feel when we enter a room or we see a certain person or something triggers us in a unique way. And it's been fascinating to me to see just in my own self how when I can be around somebody and I sense something about how they're feeling or how I'm feeling, and it brings me back to an age or a memory that I was experiencing way back when I was a child or a young adult, and learning about what do you do with that? Why is it that I can feel like I know something to be true and I want to, for example, absorb a compliment that someone has said about me. You have a nice outfit on today, or different things. But there have been these times when I instantly want to rebuff it and I don't want to accept it, or I don't want to believe that something is good. I don't want to believe that something could be positive, because I feel like there's a hesitation inside of me. What is that about? If you've experienced that, then you will really appreciate today's conversation. We're talking today with Dr. Alison Cook, who is an amazing podcaster, author. She is a licensed therapist, and she is known for her work at that intersection of faith and psychology, spiritual formation, helping us learn how to heal these past wounds and experience a grounded sense of self so that we can experience God as this steady and loving presence at all times. Her work, which you may have heard about on her podcast, The Best of You, is powerful, and it's right in line with this whole concept of knowing what's going on inside with these different feelings and understanding why we can not absorb certain things and why we get triggered by other things. It really comes down to understanding who we are, what these different voices have been saying to us, and how these are really these beautiful calls to healing, to a fuller, richer life that God has on the other side of it. But there, of course, there's all these questions that come up, like, what does that work even look like? That's frightening to think about that kind of work. And so I love that I was able to sit down with Dr. Alison and have this conversation specifically about a lot of the work that she's been doing and sharing in her new book, which is called The Secure Soul: Finding Inner Strength and Connection When Trust Doesn't Come Easy. So let's join that conversation now with Dr. Alison Cook. Hey, Dr. Alison, thanks so much for coming on the show with us today.
I am so thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate the new book that you wrote. I appreciate all the work you do. I love your podcast. It's been a great inspiration to me, and I know you inspire a lot of people with your words. So thank you for the work you do first. And I'm excited to talk about this idea of a secure soul, which is what your new book is about. One thought I want to start us with is that you had said in the book that it's really hard to receive care from someone else if you're not in touch with your own inner ache. And I know that I've experienced this. I know a lot of our listeners have too, where you feel like maybe somebody says something nice about us, like a compliment, and it's really hard to accept it or just to believe it. Yeah. And I'm curious if that relates to that inner ache or as like a sign of something that needs to be tended in us. What do you think?
100%. Can feel it often. Now I notice it when I give someone a compliment. You can almost feel this little wall go up and they deflect. She's like, no, and I'm always now, I wonder what that's about, because underneath that is something. There's something underneath that. And I know that because of my own work in my own soul of, there was a reason that wall would go up. It's very much related to how we are being with our own soul, the parts of ourself, is how we give and take and receive and give out to others.
So in that sort of a moment, is that something happening in us where there has been a block around receiving compliments? Or how would you describe that maybe for yourself, what it's like?
So I tell a story in the book. I tell two stories. One is a story of, we were talking about before we started recording, I live since the pandemic in a very spacious rural place in Wyoming. It's where I grew up. I was in cities most of my 20s and 30s and 40s, and then now we're settled down in this very rural place. And my husband and I were in London. And I loved it. It's an amazing city. And also I was so overstimulated. And I tell this story of, I was by myself. He was at a meeting, and there's all these people and there's all this commotion. And when that happens, I get, especially now when I'm used to rural spaciousness, but even back then, I get out of my body. I'm like holding all these apples and sandwiches. I forget to grab a bag. I'm very awkward. The apples start to drop and I'm losing connection, right? I'm losing myself a little bit of anxiety. Some of that's being a highly sensitive person and all the things, but and this woman just comes over to me it's almost as if, doesn't say anything, but there's a presence that she has. And she just hands me a bag. Here's a bag for your apples. Here's how to get in line to use the credit card machine. And just instantly I could feel my nervous system. I could feel my body. I'm back in my body. My thinking brain is back online. I'm settled. I could receive this lifeline that she gave to me. Now, it wasn't a compliment, but it was a lifeline, and I could receive it. And that's what we're talking about. And that sounds really insignificant, but to your point earlier, thinking in that moment, I left the store and I was back. I was settled in. I was walking the streets of London. I was back in my body. I was reconnected, right? I could receive what she offered me. But however many years earlier, a couple decades earlier, I was remembering a similar scenario where I was anxious. I was kind of out of my body. I was tense. And a similar kind of thing happened. And I remember a woman tried to extend a kindness to me. And I might have said, thank you, but it couldn't come in. And instead of receiving it and letting the beauty of that compliment or that moment of kindness enter in, I remember walking out of the store and just shaming myself. What's wrong with me? That's what was underneath. And I couldn't receive it. I'd walled off those things. And so in my own life, those sort of bookend stories of a soul that's divided, a soul that's walled off, and a soul that, sometimes I still get anxious when there's a whole lot of people around and I'm in a foreign city. But I can receive the tethers of kindness that God sends my way now. And it's just it's a freer way, lighter way of living.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've experienced some of those times myself, ironically, also in big cities. I was in New York City. There was some big things happening for work while I was there. And I woke up in the middle of the night. We were in this hotel in Manhattan. Those of you listening know I live in a more rural area too. And I had a full-fledged panic attack, and I did not understand why. And I think having moved past some of those things and done some additional work since then, I think that being in that environment really triggered a lot of that stuff that hadn't been dealt with. I'm grateful to know that God, even though we have these feelings inside of brokenness or just shame, things that we have tried to cover over, that He doesn't want us to run from that. He so lovingly directs our gaze towards them and says, let me help you. Let me help you work through that.
Yeah. And there's that part of that is becoming a student of your own soul and knowing. And that's the piece of this where it's learning. I talk about this process of recognize and return. It's recognizing. So in that moment, or the next time you're in New York, it's like recognizing, oh, this is part of why I have these triggers. When you know that, it doesn't mean that you don't still get triggered at times, but what it means is you are aware. So you're a step ahead. You have that moment of conscious awareness to be able to recognize, first of all, I could plan ahead and figure out how to mitigate. Second of all, you're with yourself, which allows you to do the things you need to do in the moment to receive God's graces. And when we're not aware, or when we're in denial, or when we're dismissing, or when we're sidelining, we actually set ourselves up for failure.
I love that. You're right. We can prepare ourselves. We can either choose to see it as a flaw that, once again, here's another broken piece of me, shaming ourselves for it, or to say, that's interesting. Didn't know that about myself. Now, after having lived in this place and going to a place like New York, this is how it affects me. So I think it's a learning moment. The whole concept of the book is about tending your soul. And I love that language because it feels gentle. It doesn't feel demanding, like you have to be better, you have to be different. It's tending to it. It's slowly taking care of it, seeing what it needs, listening to the Lord. And so I would love for you to explain what that actually means in real terms to someone who's, that sounds beautiful, but what does that actually mean?
I tell my own story, but I lay out these different parts of ourselves. And I think because the soul, we can't see it. It's not our body. It's like when my elbow is hurting, I can look at it and feel it and say, oh, I have a bruise on my elbow. But the soul can be kind of murky. We don't know what's there. And so I find this framework so helpful. And it's just this idea that we have different parts of us. And there are different categories of these parts that are pretty universally applicable. And so I lay them out as we each have a sort of what I call a controller part. This is the part of us that is in control, it knows how to show up, knows how to get out of bed and put on our makeup and show up on time for the interview. But then we also everybody tends to have a shadow part. I call it a shadow part. I share my own journey through understanding that. That's the part of us that kind of lives in the shadows, that maybe has the emotions we aren't super proud of or don't want people to know, where there's a little bit of resentment. But we all have this side of us. And these are parts of our soul. I think as Christians, we have the language, but I'm trying to take it a little deeper to recognize these are actually places inside of us, living places inside of us that are static. They've been shaped through different environments and by different people. And then we also have these young places inside of us. We carry these different versions of ourselves. We carry that 8-year-old version of us that is just longing to be seen. We carry that 15-year-old version of us that feels awkward and shy and rejectable. That's still in us. It's still alive in us. And as much, again, as that controller part of us, that adult is trying to keep that away. Why do I still feel that way? It's there. And so it's a garden. There is this living kind of ecosystem. And when you begin to just recognize that and honor that, it's like, oh, golly, I'm walking into a room full of people and I feel like I don't belong. I feel like I don't fit in. I share a lot of stories like that in the book. Yes, that is that 15-year-old part of me that still carries that. And instead of shaming myself for that, I learned to go, oh, right. I learned to tend that part of myself. And so it's giving some language for these different experiences we all have. It's like I'm in New York City and suddenly I'm triggered, but that's not me. It is a part of me.
Yeah.
It's not all of me, but it is a part of me. And I need to get to know that part of me to help me learn how to tend that place within my soul a little more effectively and a little bit. So it is all toward understanding this landscape. And it's so cool. I just love the way God made us. We're intricate.
Yeah.
There's complexity.
Yeah.
And to embrace that, that's not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And a lot of us have learned how to show up for our people. We've learned how to show up for friends and our kids and our spouses, but it's learning to show that same attunement and tenderness toward our own souls. The last thing I'll say that I really want people to take from this book is it's not how we think of self-care, which is important, but it's not just our body. Our body's part of it, but it's those inner movements, those inner bids for connection of, for some reason, I'm lonely here. I don't know why, but someplace inside of me wants that to be seen, and that you, as the gardener of your soul, can begin to recognize that and get curious about it. That's so interesting that I feel lonely here. And instead of being afraid of that or wanting that to not be real, to tend to it.
There is this gift that God gives us to be the gardener of our soul. He's saying, I can help and do anything in this world, but I've given you this ability to understand, and I'm going to be there with you as you're gardening and doing the tending. Yes. I'm there with you, but this is your responsibility to learn and to see, and not even responsibility from a negative standpoint, but just this is the gift of exploring who you are. Yeah. Stewardship is probably a better word. It's interesting that you're bringing this up because I recently have been doing a little bit more work in this area in my own self and my own heart, working with a coach and doing some other work here about different parts and younger parts of me, and learning just how faithful God is. That he struck me with this idea the other day that it's not just that he's the God of right this moment of me at age 51. It's God is the God at all of those ages of my life. Even though I didn't come to know him until I was 19, that I can go back with him to that age at 5 or to that age at 15, and I can bring him with me, and I can bring the knowledge of who I am now and what he's taught me. and speak to that girl and say, it's okay. You're going to be all right.
Yeah.
That's so powerful that the God of yesterday, today, and tomorrow, he's there. I love it. Even with people all around us, it's so easy to feel unseen. Have you noticed that we live in a world where we're connected to a ton of people on social media and even in person, yet many of us feel lonelier than ever? Genuine connection often feels hard to find. If you've ever felt lonely, even while surrounded by people you love, I want you to hear this. Loneliness in midlife is incredibly common, and it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with us. Midlife brings changing friendships, shifting family dynamics, and seasons where we begin longing for deeper connection than we've experienced before. And that's why it's something I'm excited to explore as our July topic inside the Emotional Confidence Club. We're going to have conversations about loneliness and emotional disconnection this month in the club, while also practicing science and scripture-based emotional management tools that help us respond differently to these feelings of loneliness. Because emotional health isn't just something we learn about, it's something we practice. And I love the club's format of a lab. It's a place where we can learn tools and get encouragement and ideas, and then we apply them to our real life situations. If you've been longing for deeper connection with yourself, others, or God, and you're ready to work through these emotions around feeling lonely in midlife, you're invited to join us in the club. Visit aliciamichelle.com/club to learn all the details and to join us.
Exactly. And that's the power of the work, is that you can return. God exists out of time and space.
Yeah.
And so we can go back into those painful places with the knowledge that we have now and the awareness that we have now, and bring that healing into that moment. And that's not just a nice spiritual kind of woo-woo thought. That's science, because we're learning through trauma research that those memories that we have, oftentimes people will have and I have it myself, and I describe them in the book, like, why do I remember that moment? Why does that moment stick out in my psyche? Our brains take a snapshot of these moments, and some of them are big T traumas, big things that happen, these core memories. Some of them are the little T traumas that still affect us, that something in our bodies registered, something happened here. And so as we begin to pay attention, we can revisit those places, not just with our heads, but where they still live inside of us, just to your point, and bring that healing right there. And it's wild. It's a little bit of a wrinkle in time. You're bending time and space, but God is eternal. And so somehow he's allowing us to participate in that eternal prospect of going back. It doesn't change what happened, but it does change how what happened lives inside of us.
Yes, exactly. I'm so glad you said that, because we can't erase that big T trauma that happened. We cannot remove it from it being part of us, but we can change how we relate to it. And that's where the healing work comes. Amazing. You mentioned the word loneliness a few minutes ago, and I know we've been doing a couple episodes about loneliness here on the podcast and the Emotional Confidence Club, which is a group that I run. We've been talking a lot about loneliness, especially in midlife, the season that a lot of us are in who are listening. And I'm wondering that I think for loneliness, we think, I just need to be around more people. I need to find more people. I'm wondering if some of the loneliness, if we could use the word cure, if we could use that, finding that wholeness for our loneliness doesn't necessarily always start with finding more people. It might be healing some of these parts inside of ourselves.
Yeah, I do think there's different types of loneliness, but I think one question to ask coming out of my own story was a chronic loneliness, that it was very helpful for me to begin to ask the question, there's a part of me that often feels unseen and alone, even when there are people in my life seeing me. I quote the existential, he's just a brilliant psychotherapist, Irvin Yalom. Yalom is just sort of one of the greats in modern psychology. And he talks about isolation as one of the 4 existential realities that we all face. And how he frames it is that the truth is no one can ever fully get inside my world. As close as I can get to another human being on this planet, they will never fully be inside my own skin. So there is a little bit of that. And so there's that piece of it. But the reality is God can. And when I think about human longing for connection, and I think about a lot of the book is about attachment. When you think about a baby coming into the world and how vulnerable, and how when we think about attachment research, that you need that loving presence, that someone outside of you that sees you, that loves you, that holds you, that keeps you safe, right? That's the ideal. That's what we need. And we are all imperfect humans, and none of us fully got that. None of us. Not in the best families, not in the best marriages. And the only real source of that, we can get glimpses of it in our human relationships, and it's so important. We need it. And I think we're all in a process, and I'll bring this back to loneliness, but we're all in a process of peeling back those layers inside of us, those places inside of us that didn't get seen when the kids were picking on me in fifth grade, that didn't get seen when, in my story, I was carrying heavy empathy burdens as a young child that weren't mine to carry, that didn't get seen when something traumatic happened. And that is one part of loneliness. I'm not saying it's all of it. Sometimes loneliness is just, I'm lonely because there are no people around me. But for many of us, it's more that existential ache and that attachment wound of these places in me were never seen. And I can start to recognize that. I can start to bring God into those places. And suddenly those places that have lived in the shadows are being seen.
Yeah.
And that is exactly where I end the book, is I'm by myself back in London. And because I'm able to connect to that lonely part of me and invite God into that, and after all these years of work, suddenly I am as held as I've ever been in my entire life, and I'm all by myself. And it's that inner holding. That doesn't mean I don't still need my husband, and he hasn't been a huge part of the process. My kids have been a huge part of the process, friends. All of that still matters. All of that's part of it. But that moment was so profound for me. It's like, this is fullness of being known and connected. So I think if we're noticing that loneliness, to ask the questions of, what is it that I maybe am not known in this relationship, or maybe I do need more friends? And what is it that there are places in me that need me to begin to know them, that need me to begin to invite God into these places? And maybe over time I'll begin to share that more with other people. But even, and I think this helps with our relationships, Alicia, because we put a lot on other people.
Yes.
Even if that person I love, even if that person I love isn't fully able to get this, I get this. And God has seen this. And that feels really good. And that frees me to let these relationships be what they are.
Oh, so much wisdom there, because there's all kinds of messages, whether they're been literally told to us or we're just imagining, that if I had that right relationship, if my marriage was like hers, if my husband spoke to me the way that person speaks to his wife, what we see.
If I had more friends, if I had their kind of friend group.
Yeah, then I would feel seen, I would feel known, I would feel all of these things. And even in strong marriages, even in great relationships, I have a strong marriage, I have wonderful friendships, and I can tell you that fullness that you're talking about, there are places where, you feel it with other people, but there is a uniqueness that comes, that God can give us just with him and just knowing ourselves and feeling seen. We have to go back and do that work. There's some things that other people will never be able to give us. And we have to stop believing that fantasy. That's what's out there, and we need to keep looking for it in the next relationship or whatever it is. So thank you for shining the light in that first. It's helpful to talk about these things, about being seen and looking at these parts of us. But for many of us, that's frightening.
Yeah.
That just is, wow. First of all, what the heck does that even mean, to look at myself in these deeper places? Because what do I do with that? I know I'm a mess. I know that there's stuff in there. To that woman what do I do with that? How do I do that work? Okay, I think I'm just going to go watch Netflix. We so quickly just divert from what that work could be.
Yeah, part of why I wanted to write the book as a therapist is, we do have so much, to your prior point, we do have so much conversation about attachment wounds, about the importance of parenting, about the importance of these relationships. And that is all true. And also, ultimately, I do believe that relationship that we have. And again, you think about Jesus, love God, love others as yourself. There's 3 key relationships, and that relationship with self and with God is as important. It's as important. It's not less important than these relationships with other people. And that's where I'm trying to drill down on, is that relationship with self. And I get what you're saying. The relationship with self is sometimes, I'd much rather enter into someone else's pain.
Yeah.
I'd much rather sit there with a friend who's hurting than sit there with myself. That's hard. And what I would say to that is, I think there's 2 things. I'll answer it in 2 ways, one metaphorically and one just practically. Metaphorically, I do think if you are a parent yourself, I think it's one of the best ways to learn how to be with yourself, because you think about, as you learn, and parenting is formational, right? And we figure it out over time. You learn, what is my child actually, they don't actually want me to solve their problem right now. They want me to be with them. They want me to see them, that they're hurting. They don't want me to give them a lecture, at least not initially. In those moments of emotional pain, our kids, we see it when they're little, they want to cry it out, and then they go off and play. They want us to hold them. But as they become older, it's like they want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want us to be bigger than them, not to get drawn into it with them, but to hold that steady space. I think of a picture of, I married into a very athletic family, which is different than how I'm, but my daughter, when she would physicalize her, she'd just start punching my husband in this, and she's gotten older now, and she'll, it's like, wait, you're going to hurt. But like, and that was how she was showing, and just watching him just hold that. I'm strong enough. You can get that out. We're not even going to use words. There's that pain there. I'm holding that. That's a picture of what we yearn for. It's just someone who can hold us when we're hurting. And so to have that picture in your mind, this is what the parts of yourself didn't get and need. And so that's the big picture. How do we get there? I'll get there. But like for me, learning to those memories where I remember myself, I tell a story in the book about rage journaling in high school. So hard that I would tear the page and use really bad language that I didn't hear in my home. I was raised in a nice Christian home, like swearing because I was just needed a place for the anger, and I didn't have any place for it. With that that part of me still sometimes in the back of my mind is like swearing, and I don't say it out loud, but like that. And how can I be with her in the way that she needed, to your point? How can I begin to, instead of like noticing that, why am I angry inside? Instead of trying to talk myself out of it. So again, thinking of that metaphor of the parents, we do exactly what we know we shouldn't do with our own kids. Try to fix it, try to talk ourselves out of it, try to shame ourselves, try to lecture ourselves, instead of just beginning. And it is a process. It is a process of, so interesting that I'm doing that. That's the first step. Curiosity instead. Wow, I'm driving down the road, swear screaming in my brain. I'm not saying it, but wow, what's that about? What's going on? And you can sometimes put a hand on your heart. It's that subtle shift to, oh, sweet one, what's going on? Yeah. You don't have to solve it. You don't have to fix it. And there's a neurobiology to that. That's calming to the nervous system, but it's also just how we actually have a different relationship with ourselves. So I'd say to the practical question, it's just that getting curious. I'm in the carpool pickup lane, and I'm so jealous of those other moms. Isn't that interesting? I wonder what that's about. To treat some of those awarenesses with the same kindness you would give to a friend who shares that with you. You give to your own child who comes home from school and says, the other girls have it better than I do. Oh, sweetie, what's that about? Right? Learning to be that way with our own selves. And that takes you down the trail of this work that you said so beautifully, Alicia, about finding those early places where that started and bringing God into it too. But it just starts with those moments of awareness right now. So sad here. That's so interesting, right? And where we get overwhelmed is when we think, I've got to fix that. I've got to change that.
Yes.
It's just that bringing that presence, just like you would to your own child. Thank you for telling me, right? It's like you're saying to yourself, oh, thank you for letting me know that something hurts right now, instead of shaming ourselves.
Yeah, I had a couple thoughts while you were saying that. First, I had just finished reading the two books by Dr. Edith Eger. Have you heard of her work?
No.
Wonderful psychologist. She just passed away, I think at 98 or something, but she was a Holocaust survivor.
Yes. Okay.
She talks a lot about the choices we have in life and just different things. But one quote that is in the book is she says, "There is no forgiveness without rage." And so I was thinking, as you're talking about all this, we don't have to be afraid to notice some of those difficult feelings, the rage swearing, as you were saying, the stuff in there that is part of it. These are the real feelings, and it's okay to feel them. We don't have to fix it. I think that's key, like what you said. We don't have to fix it. And the other thing I was thinking of is I was in a coaching session with a client last week, and we were doing some of this parts work, talking about some of the wounding that she had been feeling as a teenager. And so we had talked about, what if that 42-year-old, the age she is now, what if she went back and talked to this young girl? What would she say? And so as the 42-year-old, she was saying to the young girl, just don't worry about it. You're going to meet a man who's going to do this. And she was saying all of these things. And so then I asked her, so how did that 13-year-old receive that? And she was very flustered by it. She's like, she would have said, it's easy for you to say, and I don't really care what you think and all this stuff. And I was like, boom, exactly. Like that's what I was thinking in my head, because I'm like, we so just want to go back to these areas and just tell them what they need to know. But the reality is they just need to be heard and not be told what to do. Like a teenager, she doesn't need to be told what to do. She just needed to be heard.
I know it's so hard. I'm with you. I see you.
Yeah.
I get it. It's what we all need. And it's paradoxically the way we change. But I love that. I think about the work of the Gottmans. I think sometimes when we're thinking about our own souls, and I talk about this in the book, but they have this whole thing with marriage that they call the bids for connection. And these bids are, so in a relationship, and they say this is one of the key things to a healthy marriage is simply honoring the bid. And it's like when your husband says, look at the bird outside the window. How do you respond? Do you ignore? Do you roll your eyes? Or do you say, oh, I want to see it too?
Yeah. You enter into what's important to them. Yeah. What are they saying with the bid?
We're giving bids all day long. Our kids are bidding us. I want to watch that show. Obviously, we don't pick up all of them, but it's tell me more about that. Yeah. That's how connection is formed. That's what's happening from within us. These parts of us are giving us bids. They're saying, I'm mad. And there are parts of us that have never had that witnessing, right? So we have to start. I'll say to my moms, I'm like, yes, you're parenting your kids and you are also parenting the parts of your own soul. And yes, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Your kids are giving you bids all day. And those inner parts of you are also giving you bids saying, I want to do this. Every bid. It's that a certain percentage of the time you have enough trust with yourself to say, I get it. I get that you're mad. I get it. I see you. I'm with you. And as we do this work, that more and more, right? As a healthy, you think about any healthy relationship, as that trust built, the couple of times you miss it with your kids and you roll your eyes or whatever, there's trust because they know you will come back and be like, sweetie, I want to hear about that. Yeah. I want to hear your spouse. Like, I'm sorry I blew you off the other day. I actually want to hear. That trust builds. And so we don't get as much of the big emotions, right? The big ruptures. Because built the trust. But for those of us with ourselves, sometimes we've been bypassing, we've been rationalizing for so long that it takes a minute for our soul to begin to trust that we actually will say, I get it. Something happened here. It's important to you. I'm not going to dismiss it anymore. That we begin to do that, build that trust with ourselves.
It's easy to think, okay, well, I'll just go back and start listening to these parts, kind of practice doing that. But to expect that trust needs to be earned, that she doesn't trust us yet. Who are you?
She's been ignored for a long time.
Yeah, she's been pushed down and she's been told she's wrong and she's been shamed. And so there is that understanding that, okay, it's going to take a little bit of work to learn and earn her trust.
I tell these stories in the book and I'm like, I can't believe I tell them, but it was actually therapeutic for me. I have an inner comparer and she's been with me a long time. And to this day, reason doesn't work. Rationality doesn't work. It's just, I see you. I know.
Yes,
It's taken a long time to build that. She shows up. She still does. I wish she didn't. Then again, I think it's okay. But that took a long time to build that trust with that part of me that's just constantly, she's doing it better than me. And even just to be able to talk about it freely and say, oh yeah, it's just so freeing. But that took a long time to build trust with her. Because for a long time, that was just bad just shove that down for years and years. And it's taken a long time to not just make peace with her, but to befriend her and to allow her. I get where she comes from. I understand her story. I get why she's so persistent. Yes. And it's okay that she's going to be with me still for a while.
I think all this work we're talking about has to do with, are we willing to be uncomfortable? Are we willing to accept that there are some things we won't have answers to? There are things that aren't going to be able to be changed in our past, that we do need to build trust to be able to hear and listen to these parts of us, that it's uncomfortable. I think building a tolerance of uncomfortableness is really important. It's not all just about, we're really quick to stress jumping to joy and being happy and pleasure. And of course, that's an essential part of our being as humans. But this work, like you described at the end of the book, being by yourself in London and feeling just that deep exuberance of I'm held, I'm okay, that came, I would guess, from a lot of uncomfortableness. So to get to there, we have to be to sit in it. We do.
And that's why I'm so grateful for your work and the work you're doing and the work of so many good therapists. You don't do it alone. It's especially when you're starting out and especially when there's been the big T traumas, because it is overwhelming at first. It can feel like this is too big for me to hold alone. And a good therapist or a good coach, the whole point is they sit there with you in it. And that helps ease that overwhelm, right? And so don't do it alone initially. To your question of what if it feels overwhelming? If it does feel too overwhelming, that's important information to say, I'm gonna ask someone to walk with me for a season and unpack some of this together. I did that. Right. I did do it by myself. Now I can more and more and more. It's more part of my spiritual rhythms. And
it becomes skills that we learn inside of ourselves. And we learn how to calm ourselves down, to calm our nervous system when we sense that coming up and tensing. And we learn these different ways to how to work with those different parts of ourselves. And so that it is a lifelong journey to do all of this work. I love that you stressed that in the book. And I wanted to close with that metaphor that you used, the one where it was talking about our soul being like a wilderness with Jesus being able to walk through all of the different terrains, the high mountains, the desert parts, that he was with us through all of it and he is with us. Can you share more about what that metaphor is?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. I actually have, for your listeners who are interested, I actually created a guided audio reflection using that imagery. That's free. Amazing. When you order the book, it's a free companion with it.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, I can give you the information about how to do that. But it's been very, it's been very helpful to me to think about, and I live near a mountain, so that's a powerful metaphor for me. But that metaphor of the mountain, it's on the cover of the book. It's vast. And to your point, there are these beautiful forests and there are these wild, scary, dark places and kind of a story. And I love allegory. I love story. I love Pilgrim's Progress. And I loved that metaphor in my own, of these different places in my own soul that, man, some of them I don't want to go to alone. I do want to have someone hold, because, man, there's a dark forest in there. But then there are some places where there are pockets of just dancing in the meadow with the wildflowers and embracing all of it. Just you begin slowly to embrace all of it, but it is a journey. And I think to me, that's, if you're looking at a mountain and you're going to go explore it, you don't go without the proper equipment. You don't go by yourself and just run in there. You recognize it for what it is. This is a journey and I want to do this, but I want to be prepared. And I want to have the right guides and I want to have the right companions. I want to know that there may be some things in here that are hard, but man, is it worth the journey to go into the contours of your soul and to bring Jesus into every single pocket of it. And it will not be boring. The point about loneliness and also what a rich, exciting life, because God wants to heal and bring loving presence into every single place inside of us. I think about the parable of the lost coin and the lost sheep and how Jesus wants to go over after every single part of us. And I meet so many people who will say, that bad thing happened to me in the past. Why do I need to resurrect it? And I'm like, oh, you're missing out on that journey of, it's going to be painful to go back to that, behind that locked door, that dark forest. But oh my gosh, the exhilaration of seeing God's power in action is so worth it. I wouldn't have it any other way on the other side of it. So it's worth that journey. And it's not to say there aren't hard places on it.
No, it makes me think of John 10:10, which is, I have come so that they may have life abundantly. God wants to give us abundance, and even these dark forests, like you described them, these places that are scary, that feel hard, that are broken. And God is like, I want to redeem that. I'll be with you as I'm doing that work in you. Thank you for this book. Thank you for what you've shared today. Where can listeners find out more about the work that you do?
Thank you for the conversation. I love it. I'm just so grateful for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Because I'm always just the more people who are doing this together.
Yes.
And that's part of what we're doing with the book. My website is dralisoncook.com. And you can go to the Secure Soul book. It's on the website, but the Secure Soul book, and you can get that guided audio reflection. You can get the first 3 chapters. There's a companion workbook guide, so you can get all of that. We're also doing, for folks who want to read the book in community, we have a couple of specials for 5 books, for 30 books, where we'll guide you. Because to your point, like, the more we're doing this in community, it's less scary. But we need to be with people who are on the same journey. I've been in so many small groups where we bring the shaming thing, and then the small group is saying, we need to pray that shame away. And I'm like, oh no, we need to bear witness to it. Our people are recognizing the importance of just being with each other versus solving each other, fixing each other, rationalizing, logicking each other, right? With each other. So we really tried to put together some small group options for folks to do this in community. So because it's just, for me, it's like someone starts to get it in our conversation, and then they go back to their friend group or back to their small group, and their small group saying, oh, we're going to pray that away. And they're like, I want to bring it here. Yeah. That's all at dralisoncook.com or the Secure Soul book. Find all those resources.
Yeah, wonderful. I love that you're offering both options, because this is work that some people are like, I don't want to talk to anybody about this.
Yeah.
And then there's people who are like, I would love to be able to share this with other people and hear how it affects you.
Yes.
So that's awesome that there's both sides available. You guys, this is a great book. You definitely need to check it out. Thank you, Dr. Alison Cook, for being with us today. So appreciated this conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for your good work.
Thank you. I hope that conversation was an inspiring and encouraging time for you to recognize that these parts inside of you that you might be experiencing or feeling, that we all have them, and that they are a loving invitation to see growth and to see healing and to see how God can go back into those places and change things. Like we were saying, it's not that He can change the difficulties that we may have gone through, but He can bring healing. And I know I have been witness to that. And I think one thing we didn't talk about is how we can learn about our bodies and how our nervous system is existing in these different places when we are feeling that resistance to receive something, or how we can use our nervous system to bring calm so that we can do this sort of deeper work around the different parts of ourselves and finding that security. Because ultimately, we are looking for security in God first, of course, but we're looking for security in ourselves, in others, in a world that offers very little security. And this, of course, is the human experience, is finding our place, finding our security and our connection to this world. But it is this lifelong, beautiful experience that we have to be willing to enter into, because God will keep giving us these invitations, but are we willing to pick them up? So if you are saying, I want to pick them up, I'm tired of running from this, I feel like I want to be able to dig into this even just a little bit. Her book, The Secure Soul, is great. I loved how she had a lot of stories that she shared of what it was like to have those conversations with these different parts of herself. And it really gives good language for that, because sometimes it can feel a little theoretical when you talk about that, but she does a good job of sharing her own stories and what that's like. So that can be a great place to start, is her book, The Secure Soul. Also, you might think maybe this is an invitation to finally start looking at some of this work, but I need someone to help me figure out where I even start. How do I do that? How do I bring calm to my nervous system as part of it? What kind of questions do I ask? And that's the kind of work that I love doing in coaching. So whether it is the people-pleasing mindset makeover or it is just general coaching, I would love to talk to you more about what it could look like to have a partner with you as you're going through this work. So you can find out more about that at aliciamichelle.com/coaching. And that probably, at the time of this recording at least, will take you to the information on the people-pleasing mindset makeover. So if that is something we are offering at that time and you want to apply for it, I welcome you to do that. If not, you can always reach out to me at hello@aliciamichelle.com and ask about coaching. It might just be a one-on-one work that we do uniquely with you to help you with some of the stuff that we're talking about here on the show today. So I pray that if you feel that prompting in your heart around these issues, that you will take a step like that, either starting with a book or deciding it's time for me to really learn what it means to have that healing and to have a guide who can help me walk through that. Friend, thank you again for going with me in these deep conversations. I'm so honored, truly, that we get to have these conversations every week together. And I'm grateful for you as a listener. And I pray that everything that we talk about would be an encouragement and a blessing to you. And most importantly, that it would all direct you to our amazing God who loves you so much, who cares for you, and is always looking for a deeper relationship with you. Take care, friend, and I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you next week on the podcast. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for joining me today. For full show notes and helpful next step resources, visit aliciamichelle.com/podcast. And if you enjoyed this episode, I'd be honored if you'd leave a 5-star rating and review. Thanks for being here. I'll see you back next week.